fix. But not only do I work on fixing it, but I also teach them how to rebuild it, how to manage it.
That's really important. Do you tell them to cut up their credit cards?
I do. I don't tell them to close them, because that's a bad thing. But I do tell them to keep them at home if you have a habit of wanting to use them all the time. Don't always carry them with you.
Yeah.
Because I try to get them to keep their balances under 30% of the limit at all times. 30% or less is best.
Right.
Anything over that is going to bring their credit scores down.
Before the people come to you and they're starting to slide on their credit, because they're just using their credit card too much, or what advice do we have for the audience on what to do?
So, definitely be aware of how much you're using it. Always keep the balance under 30% of the limit. As I mentioned, use it for small things like food and gas and pay it off at the end of the month.
Right, pay it off at the end of the month. That's why I don't know if I can plug American Express on the radio or not, but that's what I use. I just don't use the Visas and the MasterCards. I have them, but I don't use them unless it's an absolute emergency or they don't take American Express. And I just force myself to pay it off every month.
It's smart.
Well, then you're looking at the interest rate too, right?
Right.
Some of them are like 24% or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I tell them don't keep balances on them, because you're hurting yourself by paying that high interest, and you're hurting your credit because it's going to bring your credit scores down.
Sandra, can't they go to let's say they have a credit balance and then they can go to another company and pay that off, and then they get it interest free for like a year or something like that?
So they can transfer.
Is that a good move?
Absolutely. I do tell my clients to do that if they have really high interest on their credit cards and they have really high balance that they can't pay off soon. Then, and if their credit is still good, I tell them to do a balance transfer to another credit card, because then they'll have 0% interest for the next 18 months. That they can help, pay the credit off faster without, hurting themselves by paying that high interest.
Right. How about a success story, like where it's been like in the 500s and then it's like now out of control, really high?
Oh, so...
And you're talking about yourself?
Yeah, that too.
I have clients like that all the time. Most of them are in the 500s when they come see me. And so, I've been able to get their scores up 50 to 100 points in as little as like 30 to 45 days just by removing stuff and getting them to build their credit. If they don't have any open credit cards, I encourage them to open up secured credit cards to start rebuilding their credit. And one of the things I also advise them to do is get added to somebody's credit card as an authorized user. So if they have like a family member or friend that has great credit with low balances, I say tell them to add you, because it's going to help your credit, because you're going to be piggybacking on that positive history available credit.
I won't add my brother no matter what, though.
So that's 50 to 100 points, though. Sorry to step on you. That's the only way I can get a word in edgewise sometimes. So 50 to 100 points in that 30 to 45 days. Does that make the difference? Do they get that car loan? Do they get that home loan?
Absolutely. All the time. Yeah. And usually when they come see me, they're like in a hurry to do things. They're either trying to, buy a car for the next month, or buy, close on a house that they just opened escrow on. So, if they can't get added to other people's credit cards, I also offer trade lines in-house. So I basically can add them to some of our own credit cards as an authorized user to help them build their credit. We don't let them use the card. They're just basically borrowing the credit history for a few months to help them get that quick boost.
Very slick.
We're Larry and Rob Mandel, the brothers-in-law, here on Go Country 105. Do you have a legal issue you need help with? We want to hear from you.
Find us on Instagram and send us a message. Then tune in on Saturdays at 8 a.m. right here on Go Country 105.
I've heard of delete the trade line. What does that mean?
Delete the trade line means removing an account off their credit report. So if they have a negative account, like an account that they had several lates on, deleting that trade line off their credit report would help them.
And you do that?
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. That's part of your process.
Exactly.
And you have to send out correspondence, or how do you get to that point?
We basically, just send letters to the bureaus, to the creditors, to the collection agencies. All of the companies that are reporting those negative items on their report, we, dispute them on the client's behalf and harass them. Persistence overcomes resistance, and sometimes the longer you bug them, the sooner, it'll come off, because most of those items are supposed to stay on for 7 years.
Oh my God.
Do people sue the companies, if they don't delete it?
Yeah, sometimes you can.
Is that successful?
It has been, yeah.
Really? Do
Especially
you sue
because
them for them then?
I don't per se, because I'm not an attorney, but I do work with attorneys that I refer them to.
Okay.
And so they have a lot of companies that they may have defaulted on, like Synchrony is one of them. I think America is another one that will actually harass the clients and after they go into default. And so the lawyers will then go after them for the harassment.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, we don't do that kind of thing.
We do accident cases.
Yeah.
Of injury related.
But it's very similar, in that it's a little person who doesn't have, their own voice, or, their own voice is dwarfed by this big company, by these, people that have much more power, and, they're being, ignored or exploited, or, their rights are being trampled.
Right.
And you need someone to come in and help you out. So in that sense, it's very similar, right?
So Sandra, yeah, exactly. So if somebody wanted to come to you and say, look, my credit sucks and I need to get some credit repair, what's the typical cost for that?
It varies by everyone's situation because we charge by item. So someone can start as little as 500 up to, a few thousand at the most. And we do offer payment plans because we want to make it affordable for our clients. We don't want them to not want to do it because they can't afford it. So we, kind of structure it to their kind of budget so that they can afford it. And we work with our clients anywhere from, 3 to 6 months to sometimes up to 6 to 12 months.
Money well spent.
Absolutely.
But if it's taking 6 to 12 months, they may have to put that, go to the next house, right? Or go to the next car loan.
Oh,
Yeah,
because
they have to wait.
Yeah.
And you were a mortgage broker in your other life, right?
I was, yes.
So you have a feel for, like our mortgage mom, you have a feel for what it takes to get a loan, etc., and what kind of credit you need.
That's how I got into credit repair, by doing mortgages. I started off doing mortgages for my clients and had clients who wanted to get a loan, but they couldn't because their credit was bad. And so the broker at the time, I asked him, I was like, what can we do to help them? And he said, fix their credit. And I said, okay, how do we do that? So he showed me what to do, and I just started doing it for free for my clients. And sure enough, a few months later, I was able to, increase their credit and help them get the loan. And so that's kind of how I started and got into
So
my own business.
something, good-hearted and altruistic, you turned into a business for yourself.
Absolutely.
Helping people. I like that. That's what we do.
Yeah, you help people.
Have you suffered or been injured by someone else's negligence? When you need a legal team that will stand up for what is right, won't give up the fight and obtain justice, call 818-886-6600. Mandel Trial Lawyers specializes in personal injury cases of all types. Whether it's a car accident, product or premises liability, dog bite, or a catastrophic injury, Mandel Trial Lawyers are there for you when the fight is worth it. Call now for your free consultation. 818-886-6600. Let the scales of justice tip in your favor.
We've been talking about, okay, if you get yourself in trouble and your credit is marred, or it needs repair, how you can fix that. But let's say it's you're a parent, and you have a 17-year-old kid or 18-year-old kid, and you want to help that person establish credit, get the credit for the first time, and start to do it right. Okay, so that they're on that path to that, 750 plus.
So I've got a story for you.
Okay, tell us.
We want to hear this.
All right, so I absolutely, totally advise this for all of, people that have kids. I started with my son when he was in high school. I started putting him on my credit cards. So I started building his own credit. So he's probably about 16 when I started adding him to my credit. So by the time he was 18, he had 700 credit scores.
Wow.
He was able to get his own credit card a couple of years ago. And now he's 24 and bought his first car by himself without a cosigner because he's got a 750 credit score.
How about that?
So the moral of the story is,
It does work. It helps.
Yeah.
That way you don't have to cosign for your kids.
Yeah. And how do you get them on your credit cards? Can you explain?
Yeah, you just call the creditor and say, hey, I want to add my kid as an authorized user to my card. Here's his name, here's his social, here's his date of birth. And then they'll ask you, do you want a card for him? You always say no because you don't want them to use the card.
That's the kicker right there.
don't give it to the kid.
Don't give it to them because then you're going to be paying the bill. And so when they always send a card anyways. What you do is just cut it up. You know, they don't even have to know they're on your credit.
Yeah, is there a certain duration, let's say like in your situation with your son, is there a certain time period, like a year is best versus, 6 months where they're on the credit card, where they'll develop their own credit?
So as soon as you add them, however long you've had that card open, they benefit from. So if I opened that card 5 years ago, it's going to look like he's been on that card for 5 years. So it doesn't matter.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, and if you don't want to
Good
put them
advice.
on your own credit cards and have them open up a secured credit card and start building that way. But, most kids, as soon as you turn 18 and you go to college, they're already hitting you up to open a credit card.
Do you put like a limit? Let's say he gets his own credit card. Isn't there they start out with a limit,
They usually
right?
start with small limits.
And you advise that, right?
Yes, absolutely, because you don't want them to overextend themselves. And you want to teach them to be responsible and to keep the balance low and to pay it on time. Because some of these kids, they'll get these high limits and they just go shopping like crazy thinking it's free money and messing up their credit.
That's not, and of course, that's not just kids that do that.
That's true.
I think we all are guilty at some point of thinking, hey, this little card is free money.
Till you get the bill.
Yeah.
Till you get
You
the
gotta
bill.
pay it.
Well, we were talking about that before you got here, Sandra, and that is, you go to the Nordstrom or you go to Macy's or whatever, and they always say, hey, you want 10% off? All you have to do is get one of our little cards and put it on the card.
Then you're walking around with 20 cards. Is that a bad thing?
It can be, yes, because you're showing too much available credit. And if you start using them too much, then you're showing too much debt. So it's going to start hurting you. It can sometimes make it harder for you to get approved for bigger limit cards when you show too many of these store cards. If you don't shop at that store frequently, then don't get it. I don't advise it.
Stay connected with us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and of course, brothersonlaw.com.
Well, my thing is that even if I go to the store frequently, I may forget that I bought this, $60 thing, and next thing I know, for $60 or $50, I got a dent or a ding on my credit. What does it take to actually lower your credit score and get it in trouble?
What are the bad things?
So what I see happen all the time, people forget to pay their credit cards on time, pay their car loans, school loans. So what I always advise my clients to do is set everything up on auto pay. As soon as you open a new account, set it up to automatically get a payment when you get
From your bank account, online.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then when you get the statement, you can, choose to change the amount that you already have automatically set up. Like if it's a credit card, you can pay more. But if it's like a recurring, payment on a car loan, then you already know that's going to be automatically paid on time. You don't have to worry about that getting reported late, especially if you travel a lot. It's always best to pay those, mortgage even and car loans, set it automatically on time.
Smart.
So let's say,
loans, Rob.
well,
Let me ask
student
you about
loans,
student loans
for
because
sure, but
you have student loans and they're non-dischargeable in bankruptcy, right?
That's correct.
So-
Yeah, all the government loans are non-dischargeable, and so they hurt people's credit all the time.
well, so does bankruptcy, though, for that matter, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's why, before we get too deeply into student loans, let's just say you got a 750 score, okay? And then all of a sudden you have 2 late pays for whatever it is, credit card, car loan, student loan, 2 late pays. What does that